So today we're going to travel to West Africa in Nigeria. Africa is a huge continent made up of 54 countries. And you will notice we were in Africa at the beginning of the semester when we talked about Egypt in North Africa. Egypt, as we remember, is full of a very rich and old history, but so is West Africa. In fact, we will be traveling back in time about 2,500 years ago, during the time when ancient Egypt was still around. But this time we will be starting in a village named Nok, located in the center of Nigeria, and here's a map to show us where that is. So why Nok? Well, in the early 1900s, in 1928 to be exact, farmers and workers were digging up the earth, and they discovered fragments of sculptures that seemed to resemble figures and animals. Some were life-sized human heads, while others were smaller. There were some bodies, some animal figures, some faces. They became known as the Nok Terracotta sculptures. Hundreds of these Nok Terracotta heads were found. So they were named after that village Nok where they were first discovered. Although they are known universally as Nok Terracottas, many have been found around Nigeria, not just in the village of Nok. Here's a map to show some of these other find spots. There's a lot of mystery that surrounds the objects. In fact, it is still not clear who made them. What kind of culture was it? Scholars are not sure if the Nok sites were unified politically or socially. But it is certain that the people lived in villages and engaged in farming. As digging continued on these sites, they also discovered that these cultures knew how to melt iron ore. This was because they found iron melting technology dating from the middle of the first millennia BCE. So let's take a closer look at one of the Nok heads here. The heads of the Nok sculptures are disproportionately larger than the bodies that have been found. The figures and the heads are hollowed out. So typically when you use terracotta, a type of earth material, you hollow the sculpture out before firing it. This is so that the sculpture won't explode in the kiln. It's believed that the heads would have been attached to bodies, but the bodies were significantly smaller than the heads that were found. But since everything was found in fragments, it's hard to know what would go with what. Let's take a closer look at one of these life-size heads. They are very expressive. For example, the eyebrows are arched, the nose is flaring, the lips are slightly parted. They look as though there's a lot of expression in the face. The hair is split up into sections. The hair kind of creates these large shapes that look almost like a sort of hairstyle. The open areas such as the eyeballs and the mouth may have been that way for firing purposes. Perhaps things were actually placed in the eyes. The function of these sculptures are unclear. However, they may have been important to people. In this example, the broken tube around the neck may indicate that the figure was wearing a necklace. This may indicate wealth or status. Also, this sculpture is most likely a female head. The gender of the artist is unknown. Some historians believe that these could have been sculpted by Nok women, since most of the heads resemble women. This figure that we're looking at right now is a very old male head, they believe, dating from around 2,500 years ago. So how would these have been made? Well, perhaps they were made using the coiling technique, or they were made just using a large block of clay that would be hollowed out and carved into. Originally, we know they would have been covered in slip and would have appeared smooth in texture. The slip would have created either a red or black color on the figure. And again, the eyes may have been decorated with gems or jewels, but we don't know that for certain. What we do know is what we can see, and we see the figures are very stylized. They have very similar characteristics. So your assignment is to name at least 5 similar characteristics the sculptures share with each other. So explain in detail. For example, if you choose the eyes, why are the eyes similar? Think of shape, texture, style. Use vocabulary that we've learned during the semester. Here are more examples of Nok female heads. What do you think, male or female? How are these similar to the heads that we have just looked at?